Buckle up, folks, because this is a showdown you didn't see coming. Picture this: Hollywood's ultimate icon, a man who stared down outlaws, punched up mobsters, and defined grit for generations, steps into a lion's den of daytime TV hosts who think they can take him on. Clint Eastwood, the legend whose name alone conjures images of dusty trails, and steely resolve walks onto the set of The View for what should have been a simple chat about his latest film, but oh, it turned into so much more verbal. Shootout that left jaws on the floor, and the internet buzzing. Trust me, you're not ready for this, but you're going to want to stick around for every second of it. Grab a seat, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into the chaos that unfolded when Clint Eastwood faced off with Joy Behar in a clash that'll go down in TV history. The studio lights were bright, the audience buzzing with anticipation. The View was live, and the energy was electric as Whoopi Goldberg's warm voice cut through the chatter. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the legendary Clint Eastwood. The crowd erupted in cheers, their applause shaking the studio as Eastwood, at 95 years old, but still carrying that unmistakable aura of authority, strode onto the set. He nodded politely as weathered, hands resting calmly on the armrests of his chair that gravelly voice, the one that's delivered iconic lines like "Go ahead, make my day," rumbled softly, "Thank you for having me, Whoopi," ever the professional, kicked things off with a smile. So, Clint, tell us about your latest project. What drew you to this particular story? Eastwood leaned back, his eyes thoughtful but sharp. It's about second chances. He said, sometimes people deserve another shot at redemption, even when society's written them off. His words carried weight, the kind that comes from a lifetime of storytelling. Through film, the audience leaned and captivated by the man who's been a cinematic titan for over 6 decades. Sarah Haynes, another host, chimed in with genuine curiosity. That's such a beautiful theme, Clint. At this stage in your incredible career, how do you choose which stories to tell? Eastwood's response was simple but profound. I look for true stories that say something real about the human condition. Hollywood's got enough fantasy. The conversation flowed smoothly for a few minutes with Eastwood, sharing insights about his directing process, his approach to working with actors, and the challenges of bringing authentic stories to the screen. The audience was eating it up, hanging on his every word. But one host had been unusually quiet. Joy Behar sat back in her chair, her arms crossed, a sly smile playing on her lips. She had been biding her time, waiting for her moment to strike. And when it came, it hit like a thunderclap. "Clint, can I ask you something?" Joy interjected, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. The studio went quiet, the air suddenly thick with tension. Whoopi shot her a quick glance, but Joy was undeterred. "You talk about truth and redemption, but don't you think some of your past comments about certain political figures might contradict that message?" The temperature in the room plummeted. Eastwood's eyes narrowed just a fraction, but enough to make anyone who's seen Unforgiven feel a chill. He turned to face Joy directly, his voice steady but laced with steel. "Which comments would those be, Joy?" His tone wasn't confrontational, yet but carried away to a man who doesn't suffer fools lightly. "Oh, you know," Joy replied, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "your support for politicians who shall remain nameless, but who've made some pretty questionable statements about women and minorities." The audience shifted uncomfortably. Sarah and Sunny Hoskins exchanged wary glances. This wasn't a plan. This was supposed to be a light promotional interview, not a political ambush. Eastwood didn't flinch. "I don't recall making any statements that disparage women or minorities," he said evenly, his eyes locked on Joy's. But by association, Joy pressed, clearly relishing the moment. "Don't you think your political endorsements send a message?" The other hosts looked like they wanted to disappear. Whoopi's hand twitched as if she was about to jump in, but Eastwood was already leaning back in his chair, fixing Joy with a stare that could have stopped a charging bull. "Young lady," he began, his voice calm but cutting, "I've been in this business since before you were born. I've worked with people of every background, every political persuasion, and I judge them by their character, not their party affiliation." The young lady hit Joy like a slap. Her face flushed and her voice jumped an octave. "Young lady, excuse me, but I think I have every right to ask tough questions of my guests." Eastwood didn't blink. "And I have every right not to answer gotcha questions from someone who's more interested in creating controversy than having a conversation." The audience gasped softly. Joy's face turned a deeper shade of red. "Gotcha questions?" She snapped him, "asking about your public statements, Clint. That's called journalism. Is that what we're calling it now?" Eastwood replied, a slight chuckle escaping his lips that somehow made the insult sting. "Even more in my day, journalism involved research and facts, not fishing expeditions." Whoopi tried to steer things back on track. "Let's maybe get back to talking about your film, Clint. But Joy wasn't having it. No, I think this is important. She said, her voice rising. You can't just come on television and expect softball questions when you made controversial political statements. Eastwood's eyes glinted with that dangerous spark moviegoers. No, well, there was a whole empty chair thing, Joy said, smugly referring to Eastwood's infamous 2012 Republican National Convention appearance where he spoke to an empty chair, symbolizing the President Obama. You mean when I use a creative metaphor to make a point about political accountability? Eastwood replied coolly, yeah, I remember that. What about it, Joy? Thought she had him cornered. Don't you think it was a little, I don't know, unhinged? The word hung in the air like a challenge. The audience was dead silent now, every eye glued to the drama unfolding. Even the crew members seemed to hold their breath. Eastwood leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to that whisper, quiet tone that's terrified. Villains on screen for decades. Joy, let me ask you something. How many films have you made? Joy blinked, caught off guard. What does that have to do with anything? She shot back defensively. Just answer question. Eastwood pressed. How many films have you directed, produced, or starred? And that's not the point, Joy stammered. I'm a television host and comedian. Eastwood nodded, as a conceding a minor point right. And how many Academy Awards have you won? Joy's voice was climbing higher, now her composure fraying. Again, that's not relevant to this discussion. Eastwood wasn't done. How about this? Then how many careers have you launched? How many young actors have you given their first break? How many stories have you told that actually meant something to people? Joy tried to rally. I entertain people every day on this show, but her confidence was visibly shaken. Eastwood tilted his head, his expression one of genuine curiosity. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you ambush guests and try to create controversy for ratings. Is that your idea of entertainment? Sarah Haynes jumped in desperately, trying to defuse the tension. Clint, your films have entertained millions around the world. What's been the most rewarding part of your career? But Eastwood wasn't ready to let Joy off the hook. You know, what Sarah ill answer, that the most rewarding part has been working with professionals, people who understand that respect is earned, not demanded, people who don't hide behind a panel of cohorts to take cheap shots at their guests. Joy's mouth fell open. Cheap shots. She sputtered him, asking legitimate questions about your political views. Eastwood shook his head. No, you're trying to create a viral moment for your social media clips. There's a difference between asking about someone's views and trying to ambush them. Joy's voice was shrill. Now I'm not ambushing anyone. I'm doing my job. Your job, Eastwood said calmly, is to interview guests about why they're here. I came to talk about a film and proud, a story about redemption and second chances. You want to talk politics and create drama. That's your choice. But I don't have to play along. Whoopi tried again to salvage the situation. The film does sound fascinating, Clint. Can you tell us about the main character? Eastwood's eyes stayed locked on Joy. It's about a man who's made mistakes, he said, his voice deliberate, but who's trying to do better sometimes. The biggest obstacles aren't the ones in front of you, but the people who want to keep you defined by your past. Instead of letting you grow, the metaphor landed like a punch, and Joy's face twisted with frustration. That's a beautiful message, Sarah said, quickly trying to keep things on track. Redemption is such a powerful theme. But Joy wasn't letting go. Speaking of redemption, she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm, don't you think some people are beyond it? I mean, when someone consistently supports divisive politics, at what point do we stop giving them chances? Eastwood's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. Are we talking about the character in my film, or are you trying to make this personal again? I'm talking about accountability, Joy replied, her voice now tinged with self-righteousness. Public figures have a responsibility to their fans. Eastwood's eyes narrowed. Do they now? And what responsibility do television hosts have to their guests? Joy didn't hesitate to ask the tough questions that matter. Eastwood shook his head. No, to treat people with basic human decency. Something you seem to have forgotten. The audience gasped audibly. Joy laughed harshly, trying to regain control. Human decency, that's rich coming from someone who spent decades playing violent characters and glorifying gun culture. Studio went silent, a line crossed so blatantly even the crew winced. Eastwood sat back, studying Joy for a long moment, his expression unreadable. You know what your problem is, Joy, he said finally, his voice calm but piercing. You think being loud makes you right. You think being confrontational makes you brave. But all it really makes you is a bully hiding behind a microphone.